The kingdom of Valdoran woke every morning to the sound of merchants, nobles, soldiers, and travelers passing beneath the towering iron gate. It was the busiest entrance in all 7 kingdoms, yet almost no one noticed the man who stood beside it every single day. His name was Caelan Thorn. For 21 years, he had served as nothing more than the keeper of the northern gate. Every sunrise, before the first birds sang, Caelan unlocked the massive iron doors. Every sunset, long after everyone else had gone home, he closed them again. He checked wagons. He greeted strangers. He helped tired travelers carry heavy loads. He swept dust from the stone road. And every evening, he quietly lit the lanterns that lined the entrance. People rarely thanked him. Some didn't even look at him. To the nobles, he was invisible. To the merchants, he was simply part of the gate itself. Even the palace guards often joked, if that old gatekeeper disappeared tomorrow, no one would notice. Caelan only smiled. He never argued. He never complained. Because he had made a promise long ago, not to a king, not to a lord, but to his dying father. When your duty is honest, his father had whispered with his final breath, never abandon it because others fail to see its worth. Those words became the foundation of Caelan's life. Years passed. Kings changed. Generals came and went. Wars began and ended. Children who once waved at him grew into adults bringing their own children through the same gate. Yet Caelan remained exactly where he had always been. Rain soaked his cloak. Winter froze his hands. Summer burned his skin. Still, he never missed a single day. Many believed he had no family. Few knew he lived alone in a tiny stone cottage beyond the city walls. His evenings were simple: a loaf of bread, a bowl of stew, a worn wooden chair, and an old leather journal where he wrote down every remarkable traveler who passed through the gate, not because anyone asked him to, but because he believed every person carried a story worth remembering. One evening, while cleaning the gate long after sunset, Caelan noticed a frightened little girl sitting beside the road. She couldn't have been older than 7. Her clothes were torn. Her feet were bleeding. She was trying very hard not to cry. Instead of asking questions, Caelan removed his own cloak and wrapped it around her shoulders. He offered her warm bread from his dinner. Only after she had eaten did he gently ask where her parents were. The little girl pointed toward the forest. "They never came back," she whispered. Without hesitation, Caelan lit a lantern and searched the woods until midnight. Hours later, he found the girl's injured parents trapped beneath a fallen cart after a violent storm. He carried the father on his shoulders and helped the mother walk all the way back to the city. The grateful family offered him the few silver coins they owned, but Caelan politely refused. "Keep them," he said. "You'll need them more than I ever will." By morning, life returned to normal. The family continued their journey, and the city forgot the event within days. But Caelan never mentioned it again. Kindness, he believed, was not meant for applause. Months later, an elderly traveler collapsed at the gate from exhaustion. Others stepped around the old man, afraid he carried disease. Caelan knelt beside him without hesitation. He gave the stranger water, shared his own meal, and stayed beside him through the night until physicians arrived. When the traveler recovered, he stared at Caelan with curious eyes. "You've served this gate a long time." 21 years, Caelan replied. "And you've never wished for something greater." The gatekeeper smiled gently. "Serving faithfully is already something great." The old traveler laughed softly. Few men still speak like that. Before leaving, the stranger handed Caelan a plain wooden token carved with 7 tiny stars. "If destiny ever comes looking for you," the traveler said, "show them this." Caelan looked at the strange token with confusion. "What does it mean?" The traveler simply smiled. "When the time is right, you'll know." Then he disappeared into the morning crowd. Caelan slipped the token into his pocket and returned to his duties, trying to forget the strange encounter. Yet something about those words lingered in his heart. Far beyond the mountains, across endless deserts and frozen seas, in 7 mighty kingdoms ruled by 7 powerful lords, the same ancient message had arrived. Each lord had begun a journey unlike any other. None of them knew one another. None knew where the road would end, yet every one of them carried the same mission: to find one forgotten man whose name had almost vanished from history. That man's name was Caelan Thorne. If this opening chapter sparked your curiosity, tell us in the comments, what do you think makes an ordinary person truly extraordinary? And if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to Sandy Love Tales for more unforgettable journeys, where faithfulness, humility, and hidden destinies change lives forever. The morning after receiving the strange wooden token, Caelan Thorne returned to his familiar place beside the iron gate of Valdoran, as though nothing had happened. The same wagons rolled through the entrance. The same merchants argued over prices. The same guards changed shifts without acknowledging him. He unlocked the great iron doors before sunrise, swept the cobblestones clean, and greeted every traveler with the same quiet smile he had worn for 21 years. Yet somewhere deep within him, the mysterious words of the old traveler echoed again and again. If destiny ever comes looking for you, show them this. Caelan shook the thought from his mind. Destiny belonged to kings and warriors, not forgotten gatekeepers. Hundreds of miles away, in the kingdom of Carath, Lord Alric Vaynor studied an ancient parchment spread across a marble table. The parchment contained no map, no treasure, and no military strategy. It carried only a single sentence written in faded golden ink. "The keeper of the seventh gate shall unite the kingdoms." Alric frowned. "Who is this keeper?" An elderly royal scholar answered quietly, "We have searched for decades, my lord. Every clue leads to one man, but no one believes it could truly be him. Then we shall find him ourselves." At that very moment, in the mountain kingdom of Dravos, Lord Cedrin Malvec received the exact same prophecy. Across the eastern sea, Lord Orion Velcrest unsealed another scroll bearing the identical message. In the deserts of Aramon, Lord Ryden Corvus abandoned an important council meeting after reading those same mysterious words. One by one, 7 powerful lords from 7 distant kingdoms left behind their thrones, armies, and comforts. Each believed they alone had discovered the greatest secret in history. None realized 6 others were riding toward the same destination. Back in Valdoran, life remained ordinary for Caelan. Late that afternoon, a wealthy merchant stormed toward the gate, furious that one of his wagon wheels had broken on the rocky road. Seeing Caelan sweeping the entrance, the merchant shouted, "You, gatekeeper, are you blind? My wagon nearly overturned because this road isn't properly maintained." Several people stopped to watch. The merchant continued yelling, accusing Caelan of laziness and incompetence. Though the damaged road lay miles outside the city walls and had nothing to do with him, Caelan simply bowed his head. "I'm sorry your journey was difficult, sir," the merchant scoffed. "Sorry doesn't repair wagons." Without another word, Caelan quietly fetched his own toolbox. For the next 2 hours, he repaired the broken wheel, using spare wood and iron fittings he had collected over the years. When the work was finished, the merchant reached into his purse. "How much do I owe you?" Caelan smiled. "Safe travels are payment enough." Ashamed, the merchant lowered his eyes. He had expected anger. Instead, he had received kindness. As evening approached, Captain Darius, commander of the city guards, watched the entire exchange from atop the gate wall. He had known Caelan for years, but had never truly paid attention to him. 21 years, Darius muttered. "I've never once seen that man seek praise." One of the younger guards laughed. "He's just too simple to know better." Darius remained silent. Something about Caelan's quiet strength unsettled him. That night, an unexpected storm swept across Valdoran. Thunder shook the fortress walls as fierce winds battered the iron gate. Most of the guards rushed inside to escape the rain. Only Caelan remained outside, struggling to secure the heavy doors before the storm damaged them. As lightning flashed across the sky, a frightened horse bolted toward the entrance, dragging a broken carriage behind it. Inside the carriage sat a young pregnant woman, screaming for help. Without thinking, Caelan ran directly into the storm. He seized the horse's reins with both hands, The terrified animal reared high into the air, nearly crushing him beneath its hooves. Rain blinded his eyes as he fought to calm the beast. Finally, after several tense moments, the horse stopped. The woman burst into tears. "You saved my child," she whispered. Her elderly husband offered a velvet pouch filled with gold coins. Caelan stepped back and shook his head. "Please use it to care for your family." Before they could thank him again, he disappeared into the rain, returning to secure the great gate as though nothing remarkable had happened. An unfamiliar rider had witnessed everything. Breaking the royal wax seal, he compared the words inside to the man standing in the rain. Then he whispered to himself. The description was true. The keeper has been found. Before sunrise the next morning, the mysterious rider disappeared without speaking to anyone. He rode west at full speed toward the border, carrying news that would soon shake all 7 kingdoms. Unknown to Caelan, the First Lord was now only days away from Valdoran, and 6 others were already closing the distance from every direction. The quiet life of the forgotten gatekeeper was about to change forever. If you're enjoying this journey, share your thoughts below. Why do you think true greatness often hides in the most ordinary people? And if you don't want to miss what happens when the 7 lords finally arrive, be sure to subscribe to Sandy Love Tales.
Right now, we are standing at a critical turning point in the story, where every choice could change the fate of an entire kingdom. So let me ask you, if you were in Lucien's place, would you step into that unknown tunnel beneath the Stone of Kings? Or would you prepare your kingdom for war above the surface instead? Because both choices come with consequences that cannot be undone. Drop your opinion in the comments and tell us which decision you would have made and why. And if you're truly following this journey, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what happens next.
By dawn, the entire kingdom knew the truth. Every noble house spoke of the mysterious young woman who had entered Ashthorne Manor wearing a torn servant's dress, and had somehow earned the complete trust of Duke Lucien Ashthorne. Rumors spread even faster after the Duke publicly dismissed several corrupt officials based solely on evidence uncovered by Aveline herself. Those who had mocked the $5 purchase suddenly realized that the Duke had never bought a servant. He had unknowingly rescued the kingdom's greatest hidden ally. Yet while admiration grew among honest citizens, hatred burned inside those whose crimes were about to be exposed. In the shadows, Lord Malrek gathered every noble whose fortunes depended on corruption. "If we cannot silence the Duke," he whispered coldly, "we destroy the girl." Before continuing, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. It's always amazing to see how far these stories travel across the world. Now, let's uncover the final chapter. Late that evening, Aveline stood alone inside the castle library, studying ancient ledgers that confirmed decades of stolen taxes and hidden bribes. Moonlight poured through the tall, stained glass windows, painting silver patterns across the stone floor. She never noticed the silent footsteps approaching behind her until a poisoned dagger flashed toward her back. At the last possible second, Duke Lucien appeared between them, catching the assassin's wrist with crushing force. Steel clashed as palace guards rushed into the chamber. The assassin managed only one terrified glance toward Lord Malrek's crest, stitched beneath his cloak, before taking poison to silence himself forever. The failed assassination changed everything. Duke Lucien realized his enemies would never stop hunting Aveline until the truth was revealed before the entire kingdom. 3 days later, he summoned every duke, duchess, merchant lord, knight commander, bishop, and royal official to the Grand Hall of Crowns. It became the largest noble gathering held in generations. Hundreds filled the marble chamber beneath enormous crystal chandeliers, while soldiers lined every wall. Lord Malrek entered wearing an expression of perfect confidence. He believed Aveline was nothing more than a frightened servant, with stories but no proof. The 5 duchesses sat beside Duke Lucien, watching silently as Aveline stepped into the center of the hall. Her simple grey dress had been replaced with an elegant ivory gown that reflected quiet dignity rather than wealth. Every eye followed her. Without raising her voice, Aveline began revealing document after document. Hidden tax records, secret property transfers, forged royal seals, names of bribed officials, illegal executions disguised as accidents. Every accusation was supported by undeniable evidence recovered from forgotten archives and coded ledgers. Gasps echoed throughout the hall. Noble families who had trusted Lord Malrek for years stared in disbelief as their own signatures appeared beside stolen fortunes. Finally, Aveline produced one last document, sealed with the royal crest itself. It revealed the greatest secret of all. 20 years earlier, Lord Malrek had orchestrated the murder of the previous royal advisor, framed innocent families for treason, and stolen enormous wealth that had plunged thousands into poverty. The evidence had survived only because a loyal servant had hidden copies before dying. That servant had been Aveline's own father. The hall erupted into chaos. Lord Malrek lunged toward Aveline in desperation, screaming that she was lying. But before he could reach her, Duke Lucien drew his sword. Its polished steel reflected the light like pure silver as he stepped protectively in front of her. "No one," the Duke declared with calm authority, "will ever threaten her again." Royal guards immediately surrounded Lord Malrek and his allies. Several corrupt nobles attempted to flee, but found every exit blocked. One after another, they were arrested before the entire assembly. The kingdom watched as decades of corruption collapsed in a single afternoon. When silence finally returned, the elderly High Chancellor slowly approached Aveline. Tears filled his eyes as he recognized the family crest hidden inside the final document. Bowing deeply before everyone present, he announced that Aveline was the last surviving daughter of House Valmir, a noble family destroyed through Lord Malrek's conspiracy years earlier. She had never truly been born a slave. She had been robbed of her name, her home, and her inheritance. Every noble in the hall stood in stunned silence. Duke Lucien turned toward Aveline with quiet emotion. "The day I paid 5 coins, he said softly, "I believed I was saving a stranger. Instead, fate brought me the bravest woman I have ever known." Aveline smiled through tears, no longer carrying the fear that had haunted her for years. She had entered Ashthorne Manor believing she was worthless. Now she stood before the entire kingdom as living proof that dignity can never be sold. Months later, the kingdom flourished under sweeping reforms, led by Duke Lucien and Lady Aveline. Taxes became fair. Corrupt officials disappeared. Orphanages, schools, and hospitals replaced abandoned estates once owned by dishonest nobles. The 5 duchesses, who had once doubted Aveline, became her closest allies, each helping rebuild the kingdom in her own way. Together, they transformed Ashthorne Manor into a symbol of justice rather than privilege. Visitors often asked Duke Lucien why he never regretted buying the frightened slave girl for only $5. He always answered with the same quiet smile. "The greatest treasures," he would say, rarely announce their true value. Please like the video, subscribe for more unforgettable medieval dramas, and share it with someone who believes kindness can change a life. Sometimes the smallest act of compassion becomes the beginning of history. Months passed, and peace seemed to have finally returned to the kingdom. Ashthorne Manor had become a place where justice replaced fear, and Duke Lucien Ashthorne and Lady Aveline worked side by side to rebuild villages that had suffered under decades of corruption. The 5 duchesses had accepted Aveline not only as an ally but as family, and for the first time in many years, laughter echoed through the castle's ancient halls. Yet unknown to everyone, the downfall of Lord Malrek had awakened an even greater enemy, one who had been hiding beyond the northern mountains, patiently waiting for the kingdom to weaken. Before we continue, if you've enjoyed this story so far, don't forget to subscribe and let us know in the comments what country you're watching from. Now, the story takes an unexpected turn. One cold autumn morning, a royal messenger arrived at Ashthorne Manor, carrying a sealed black scroll, marked with the crest of the forgotten kingdom of Varaldor. The messenger trembled as he handed it to Duke Lucien, explaining that every castle which had received the same letter had fallen silent Only days later, Lucian carefully broke the wax seal, while Aveline watched beside him. The message contained only a single sentence: "Return what was stolen from the crown, or your kingdom will fall before the next full moon." Neither Lucian nor Aveline understood its meaning. Nothing had ever been stolen from Varaldor, yet the warning felt disturbingly personal. That evening, the High Chancellor examined ancient royal archives and uncovered records that had remained hidden for nearly 40 years. Long before Lord Malrek rose to power, a priceless royal relic known as the Crown of Dawn had disappeared during a bloody civil war. Legends claimed the crown granted legitimacy to whoever ruled the kingdom, making it more valuable than all the kingdom's treasure combined. The final record mentioned that the relic had vanished while being secretly transported through Ashthorn territory. No one had ever discovered what became of it. Suddenly, every eye in the council chamber turned toward Aveline. Among the documents recovered from her father's secret archive had been a strange silver key, engraved with symbols no one could read. At the time, everyone believed it to be meaningless. Now the High Chancellor realized it matched sketches found beside the records of the missing Crown of Dawn. Aveline quietly removed the silver key from a small wooden box she had kept since childhood. Her father had died protecting it, never explaining why. Duke Lucian immediately understood the danger. Whoever ruled Varaldor believed Ashthorn Manor possessed the key leading to the lost crown. Before sunrise, scouts returned with alarming news. Tens of thousands of soldiers wearing black armor had crossed the northern frontier. Their banners displayed the crimson phoenix of Varaldor. Villages near the border had already surrendered without resistance. Panic spread across the kingdom faster than wildfire. Noble families packed their wealth and fled south, while merchants closed their gates. But inside Ashthorn Manor, no one spoke of surrender. Lucian summoned every loyal commander, while Aveline carefully studied her father's journals once again. Hidden inside the leather binding, she discovered a folded map, invisible beneath ordinary candlelight. Only when held above the fireplace did faded ink reveal a route leading deep beneath the ancient mountains separating the two kingdoms. At the end of the map was a single handwritten sentence left by her father: "The truth sleeps beneath the stone of kings." Lucian looked at Aveline and immediately knew what had to be done. If the Crown of Dawn truly existed, finding it before Varaldor did might prevent an endless war. The Duke announced that a small expedition would secretly leave before dawn, traveling through forgotten tunnels beneath the mountains, while the kingdom's army prepared its defenses. The 5 duchesses insisted on helping organize supplies, secretly gathering trusted soldiers, maps, horses, food, weapons, and medical provisions. None of them wished to see Aveline walk into danger alone again. As the first rays of sunlight touched Ashthorn Manor the next morning, Aveline stood beside Duke Lucian at the castle gates. She wore a warm traveling cloak over her ivory noble gown, while Lucian fastened his silver sword beneath his royal cape. Neither knew what waited beneath the mountains, but both understood that the future of 2 kingdoms depended on the journey they were about to begin. Behind them, the people of Ashthorn silently watched, praying that the young woman once sold for only $5 would once again become the miracle that saved them all. The castle gates slowly opened. Horses stepped onto the ancient northern road, and the greatest adventure of their lives began. By the time the first snow began to fall on the northern borders, the expedition from Ashthorn Manor had already entered the forbidden mountain passage known in forgotten records as the Stone of Kings. The air inside the mountains was colder than steel, and every breath echoed through endless stone corridors, carved by hands long lost to history. Duke Lucian Ashthorn led the way on foot now, his warhorse left behind at the surface entrance due to the narrow descent. He carried a torch in his left hand and kept his right hand near the hilt of his ceremonial silver sword. His midnight blue velvet ducal coat embroidered with silver thread and his dark royal cape now looked heavier in the damp underground air, but he never slowed his pace. Beside him, Lady Aveline walked carefully. Her ivory silk noble gown, with silver embroidery, partially covered by a dark travel cloak, fastened at her shoulders. Her long, wavy, dark brown hair fell over her cloak, slightly damp from the underground mist, and her silver-blue eyes reflected the flickering torchlight as she studied every carved symbol along the walls. The silver key she carried, engraved with ancient runes, glowed faintly whenever they passed certain markings, as though responding to something buried deep within the mountain. Behind them, the 5 duchesses followed with trusted soldiers, their elegant gowns now layered with travel cloaks and leather armor pieces for protection. The emerald, sapphire, ruby, gold, and pearl tones of their dresses were dimmed by dust and torch smoke, yet their presence remained commanding as they carried supplies, weapons, and maps through the narrow stone passage. The tunnel itself felt alive, filled with strange carvings depicting an ancient crown radiating sunlight, kneeling kings, and wars that erased entire civilizations from memory. After hours of silent descent, the group reached a massive underground chamber where the passage split into 3 directions. At the center stood a colossal stone monument shaped like a broken crown, its surface covered in glowing blue inscriptions. Duke Lucian raised his torch higher, studying the structure with narrowed eyes. "This is no natural formation," he said quietly. Aveline stepped forward, her hand tightening around the silver key. The moment she approached the monument, the key began to vibrate violently, pulling her closer as if it recognized its origin. When she inserted it into a hidden slot within the broken crown, the entire chamber shuddered. A deep mechanical sound echoed through the mountains, as ancient locks long frozen in time began to awaken. Stone mechanisms moved beneath their feet, and hidden pathways slowly revealed themselves behind shifting walls. Suddenly, from the far darkness of the tunnel, armored footsteps echoed rapidly. A scout rushed forward, breathless and panicked, dropping to one knee before the Duke. "My lord," he gasped, "Varaldor forces have reached the outer mountain entrance. They are descending into the tunnels. They will be here within hours." The chamber fell silent. Even the duchesses stopped moving. Duke Lucian tightened his grip on his sword while looking at Aveline. She stood motionless, holding the glowing key, as if it had chosen her fate long before she was born. Then, deep beneath the mountain, something larger than stone and war began to awaken. A hidden gate slowly opened behind the broken crown, revealing a path filled with blue light stretching into darkness far older than the kingdoms above. Aveline took a slow breath and stepped forward, because turning back was no longer an option.
Now that this chapter has unfolded, there's something important I want you to judge for yourself. Was Aveline right to trust the glowing key and open the hidden path, or did she unknowingly put everyone in greater danger? And another question most people miss. Do you think Lucian made the right call by following her immediately? Or should he have prioritized defending the kingdom instead? Be honest in the comments. There's no right or wrong answer, just different perspectives. Tell us where you're watching from so we can see how global this story has become. If this story kept you thinking, subscribe to Sandy Love Tales and share it with someone you deeply care about. Someone who would debate this story with you late into the night.